Good morning, everybody. Hello, welcome. My name's Rosie. Nice to see you all. It's freezing, isn't it? It's so cold. But it's all right because we're indoors. Now, this session could be outdoors, and I will talk a lot about that today. But we're going to be inside today because it's too cold for my little fingers. I do a lot of craft sessions for the Virtual Village Hall, do loads of different crafts, but I know that this week is Mindspace week, so we want this to be super mindful, relaxing, calming. And I'm a huge advocate of doing crafts that are, for all abilities. I want people to feel like they can be creative and experimental. And not feel like they have to be skillful at art. I think art doesn't have to be about being good at it. It's about enjoying the process. And this session today is exactly that. Anybody can do it. Kids can do it. It's super easy, but it's really good fun. So it's a bit of shadow art. So mostly I would say that this works better outdoors if it's sunny. If the sun is shining and it's not freezing cold, then this is a really lovely thing to do in the garden, or if you don't have a garden, at the park, just anywhere where there's greenery and stuff that creates a shadow. You don't have to use foliage, you don't have to use green stuff, you could use anything you like. But today I'm going to try and use sort of natural stuff or pretend natural stuff, as you will see. And as you can see, I'm not outside, so I'm going to do it with a light. So you don't need to be outside, you don't need the sunshine, but you could do it outside. So I'm just letting you know that if you feel like you could brave the cold, or if it's a slightly warmer day, then you can do this outside while the sun's shining, and the possibilities are endless. But if you don't, what I've got here is a lamp. Now, you might notice, usually my face is really glary because the light's coming in from the window straight onto my face and you can't see anything. But today we've got atmospheric lighting. I mean, it's not atmospheric lighting at all, really. I've just closed the blind. So I'm slightly darker than usual, but that's just so we can get the best effect on our shadow art today. What I've got is a sort of spotlight lamp. I'll see if I can show you actually. Let's see if I can put it into shot. So it's one of these sort of windy ones, and it's a sort of spotlight. So it's quite a small light, quite direct, quite pointy. You can sort of see the circle of the light here, right? So it's not casting a huge amount of light. The light that it is casting is quite pinpointing on one area. So that's the sort of best lamp that you could use. I've fiddled around with a few different lamps and tried a few different things. Now I'm wondering if I can put my other lamp into shot. I'm going to try just to show you the different things we've got. So I've got this one here, which as you can see is quite a bit bigger, and that didn't cast as good a shadow as this spotlight one did. So you're kind of looking for quite a small spotlight. You could also, if you don't have one of those sort of lamps, you could also use a torch. So if you have a quite powerful torch that casts quite an obvious light, then you could also use that. So the options of light sources are many. You could choose whatever you like, whatever is best. I don't think there'd be anything stopping you using the light from the sun coming in through the window as well. So if you set yourself up where the light's coming in, you'd also get a nice shadow when it casts on the floor or on your windowsill, that sort of thing. You just need a good light source. And if it's an electric one or a battery powered one, then you want it to be quite, what's the word? Sort of pinpointing, not big and wide. And basically, all we're going to do is we're just going to trace over some stuff and colour it in. That's as simple as it is, but it's really good fun. And I think the marks that you create doing it are really lovely, really experimental and interesting. And actually, one of the things I was thinking about, because essentially what we're doing is tracing. When you're actually tracing, when you use tracing paper and you put it onto something and trace over it, I find actually that's quite makes you quite tense when you're tracing over something really detailed. And even though tracing is kind of it makes drawing easier because you're tracing something that already exists, I still find that it can kind of make you hunch your shoulders up while you're trying to get all the details. So this takes all of the tension away from that, because it's very free flowing. It's very abstract and experimental. You can move things around as you wish, and you can just go for it. So all I've got here today, I'll try not to rant on too long and we'll get some work done, because this is what I always do, isn't it? I always go on a big rant. All I've got is some paper, and then I've got big chunky pencil crayons. Now, you don't have to have big chunky pencil crayons, you can use normal ones, but I really like these. They're supposed to be for children, but I think they're great. And then I've got some oil pastels, and they're not expensive ones. I've just got the cheapest oil pastels I could get. And I've also got some marker pens. So today I've got these guys. So these are Sharpie creative markers. Let me show you on this camera here. So they're kind of Sharpie's answer to the Posca pen. So they will work on any kind of surface, and they're really bold and bright. And you can buy packs of these on Amazon at the minute, and they're a little bit cheaper than usual because they're quite new. So I think they're trying to put promotions on them so people try them out. They're really nice to use, but you can use anything. You could use paint, you could use pencils, pens, whatever you've got. As long as you've got a few different colours and you feel confident using them, you can use anything, as long as they make marks on the paper. I've got a couple of different types of paper. I've got the white paper here, but I've also got black paper. Let me just move the spotlight back into position so we can see what we're doing. So I've got black paper here, which works really nicely because you get really bold colours. However, I'm probably not going to use the black paper today, simply because you might not be able to see what I'm doing because it's quite dark. We might have a go. We'll see if we've got time. The point is, you can use whatever paper you want. It doesn't even need to be plain paper. It could be old magazines, it could be newspapers, whatever you've got lying around, old envelopes, things like that. It could be cardboard. Anything that you've got, it could be something that you're going to recycle. As long as you can make a mark on it, doesn't really matter. And I still think the effect will be fabulous at the end of it. So I'm going to move these to one side. This is the sort of thing we're going to do today. Just show you that one again. Lovely jubbly. And then I'm going to move it out of the way, and you will see underneath I've got a lovely piece of white paper ready to go. And I've got my light shining on here. You can see the circle. The main thing you want to look for when you're doing this is a good strong shadow. So I might need to move more stuff out of the way. It's a bit of a mess in here, as usual. What you want is quite a strong shadow. I've got a few different things, and you could experiment with anything at all that casts a shadow, which is anything. And what you're looking for is a nice strong line here. So you can see with my hand, it's quite obvious what the shadow is. It's very easy to see. It's not kind of blurred. And you'll know this when you try different light sources. That's why the sun works so well, because it's such a bright light source. It casts a really good shadow. Really annoying when the sun goes behind a cloud. But other lamps you might find, if you use certain lamps or different torches, that the shadow isn't very strong. Now that's fine. That doesn't mean to say you can't do it. You could do it with a blurry shadow, and that's totally okay. You just might find it easier to do details with a stronger shadow. So what I've got today is a few different things. This is going to be fun. I wanted to use sort of plants, right? I wanted to use plants and leaves, but also I didn't really want to go outside. I did get a few bits from outside, but what I have got is this. It's going to be quite fun trying to bring this over without knocking everything over. So I've got this, which is like a garland of fake foliage. So this is the sort of thing that you'd make a wreath with. I've got this because the reason I have this is because last year my daughter dressed up as the giving tree for World Book Day, and I bought this to wrap around her so that she could be dressed as a tree. And now it sits on my mirror, but also casts fantastic shadows. And you can see, hopefully, the sort of shadows that it creates. And so that's one of the things I'm going to be using today. So any kind of plant life that isn't kind of in soil and isn't going to cause absolute havoc. But also I did go into the garden and get some flowers. So if there's any kind of cuttings you could do, then this sort of thing will make beautiful shadows. I was also thinking maybe like autumn leaves, anything like that that you can get off the ground, sticks, twigs, that sort of thing. They all will work perfectly. As long as you can quite happily move it around your paper without making a mess, you're good to go. But I've also bought a couple of other things just to test, really, just to have a go. So I've got this. This is very exciting. This is one of my daughter's pens, and it's got this like tinsel on the end of it, and it makes a beautiful, it's like a disco in here, but it does create a really cool shadow. So anything like that that's kind of textured and will do a good shadow will be great. And then I also found some feathers. This is a wand that my daughter made, but I thought the feathers would make quite nice shadows. So anything like that would be good. Any of that sort of thing. I ran this session in real life. I know it's real life, but not over a computer, with a group of people. And one of the ladies put a load of paintbrushes in a jar and plonked that next to a bit of paper, and the sun made the shadow on the paper, and she drew around that, and that looked amazing. So it doesn't have to be natural materials, it can be anything you like, as long as it casts a good shadow. And it doesn't have to be a shadow that is obviously the thing that it is. That's kind of the point, is that it's going to be abstract and might not be obvious what it is. Well, there's a tiny little fly that has obviously come off the flower. I'll just wipe that away. Yeah, it can be anything you like. As long as it's casting lots of exciting shadows on your paper, you're good to go. Now, where I would usually start with this is just a normal pencil. However, I've done these sessions before and tried to draw with pencil, and I have noticed that you can't really see the pencil on the camera because the camera's not super strong. So I'm going to use a black fine liner just so that you can see the marks that I'm making. You can use a normal pencil, or whatever you like, really. Doesn't matter what you use. The whole point of this is that it's a really nice, relaxing craft that has no consequences whatsoever. You can't go wrong. There's no way you can go wrong on this, because you're just making marks. You're just following the guide of the shadow. I want you to do it super slowly and calmly, and really just enjoy the moment. Just be really present in the thing that you're doing. So let's get going. I'm going to move all my chunky pencils out of the way. Okay. So we just need to decide what we want to trace around first, really. I think I'm going to start with the flowers because they came from the garden. I might as well. So you could do a few different things. So you could do one flower at a time, or you could hold a bunch of them. And what I love about this is because you're just holding them, they're going to move. They are going to move around. They're going to wobble. It's not going to be detailed. And that's kind of the point, is that it's forever moving, it's forever changing. You can choose to change it, you can move it around as you wish. So we'll just see where we get on. We'll just see what happens. The last time I did this was in the garden, so it's going to be interesting to see what my brain conjures up whilst sat under a lamp, and that's the exciting thing about this. So I'm going to hold all four of these into a bunch. Now it's going to be interesting to see how much of this you can see, because I am going to hold the flowers. But really, all you want to do is get your item, whatever it is you're using, and sort of try and create a shadow that fills up a lot of the page. We want to be filling the page here. I've got an A3 piece of paper, so it's quite big. You don't have to do it on A3, it can be on A4, it can be whatever size you like. You could do it on a huge piece of paper if you like, completely up to you. But essentially, I'm just going to hold it in such a way that I like the look of it on the page. And then, simple as that, I'm just going to draw over the shadow. That's all I'm going to do. So we'll see how much of it you can see. Now, what I might do is I'm going to hold it up like this, and my hand, which is here it is, I'm going to rest it on the table, just so I can sort of hold it in the same place. And if it wobbles, it doesn't matter. I'm going to start over here so you can see what I'm doing, because I'm literally just going to trace over the shadow. And what I really love about this is I just love making the shapes. It's really therapeutic to sort of follow the lines of the shadow and not really worry where it's going. It's just happening. And you don't need to worry about like what it is you're drawing either. That's what I really like about this, is that you're just following a pattern. You're not really, doesn't matter how it looks, what the end effect is. You're just drawing lines. I'll just see where we get with it. And if you decide you want to move your flowers or your items, that's fine. You could move them around a bit. I'm going to try and draw around some of these top bits here. And also, doesn't matter if you make up some of the lines either. That's what is also great about this, is if there's a bit where it sort of goes off the paper or you can't see quite what's going on, you just follow your own mind and just go wherever you want it to go. Wherever you want the pen to go, just let it follow. And you could join the lines up if you wanted, but also you definitely don't have to if you don't want to. And I really like that it wobbles and it changes constantly. I think that's really exciting. I'm going to do this line here. Beautiful. I quite like as well that sometimes your view is blocked by the thing as well. So you're just sort of guessing. That feels quite nice. That feels quite kind of, it kind of like feels quite exciting. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move them now and I'm going to carry on drawing. And then what I might do is I might choose something different to make a shadow and see what happens. So I'm going to draw around this flower here. And I'm purposely letting it overlap some of the other marks. I kind of want that to happen. So the more marks you do, the more exciting it is afterwards when we start colouring it in. And then I'm going to maybe go over to this side here. So I've got some right on the edge. Let's see. Oh, this one's nice. Let's do this one. Easy peasy. And I'm hoping, I mean, for me, this feels quite mindful. As you can probably tell, I'm not speaking much. Really getting into the zone. I'm hoping this will be the same for you. Lovely. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these flowers away and just have a little look at what I've created. I know it's quite glary on the camera. So maybe if I lift it up slightly. There you go. So you can sort of see where I'm going with this. That's looking great. Love all these lines. Beautiful. So now what I might do is I'm going to just move the paper up slightly because I want to fill this area here. And I'm going to try a different thing now. So maybe we'll try some of the foliage, try some of the big foliage, see what marks we can make from this. I mean, it's quite big, so it's going to be fun. Let's find the end of it first, shall we? I might drape it around my shoulders at the end, like some kind of cape. Okay. So this one's a little bit more detailed because there's a lot more foliage going on. So again, you just want to find a pattern that you quite like the look of, the lines that you like the look of. That's quite cool. I like that. I'm going to follow that now. And if you use foliage like this, that's quite kind of, there's lots going on, I find this is also quite freeing because the marks you're making are definitely not going to look exactly like the thing that it is. And that's okay. That's a good thing, I think. We're just making patterns. Quite like this one because it's got, this foliage is supposed to look a little bit like eucalyptus, I think. And I quite like eucalyptus leaves because they're quite round. So you can make some really nice shapes with them. Beautiful. I like doing all these little stalks as well. They're really fun. Very nice. Lovely. I'm going to move it slightly and see if I can get some detail right in this bottom corner. You're probably not going to be able to see this. Hang on 1 second. Where are we? This corner here. Oh, let's see if we can get one of these sort of ferns in. These ferns are quite nice. Get them in there without bashing myself in the face. Oh, look at that. That's beautiful. Let's see if we can replicate that somehow. But I don't want it to be exact. I mean, you could, if you prefer it to look exactly like the foliage. This is a really simple way of making art that is of flowers and plants and stuff like that. And you could be quite detailed with it. I would say if you like doing it that sort of way, then your best bet is to put your foliage into something and stand it up and sort of have a look at the shadow, but also because you're not holding it, it's going to hold quite still, and then you can be really detailed with it. I just don't like that way of working as much. I think I quite like the movement and the free flowing mark making. But if you wanted to do, you know, like a vase of sunflowers or something like that, then you could probably get a really detailed image of it, and it's a really easy way of doing it. There we go. So we've got our fern there, looking good. So now I'm going to concentrate on this corner here that hasn't got much going on. So what should we try now? I'm thinking maybe this one's quite nice, whatever's going on here. Hang on. The only part that's fiddly about this is getting your foliage to sit where you want it. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, let's do that one. Beautiful. And I like all the overlapping as well. I think that looks really nice. And all the overlapping will make the next stage of this picture far more fun and interesting. Beautiful. Okay. Wonderful. Okay, we've got some nice shapes there. Very good. I'd say we've filled that pretty well. We might go in with some details if we wanted to. Let's get where have those feathers gone? Let's see if we can make some nice feather shapes just in any of the gaps. So down here, for example, we could do some really lovely spiky bits at the end of the feathers. Beautiful. This one's quite nice. They're lovely shapes. These lovely. Oh, that's too bright on the light there, isn't it? There's those feather shapes there that look really good. I'm tempted to turn it around now, have it upside down, and maybe put some other bits on it. Maybe we'll try the jazzy pen. Maybe we'll see what happens if we use the jazzy pen. I mean, first of all, it's going to be like a disco. But these would also, if you're using this sort of thing, so like any kind of holographic material, make some great photos, wouldn't they? I think they'd make some really lovely abstract photos. So this is also something you could do. This is gone on a complete tangent here. Completely different craft, completely different idea, but it looks great. So if you wanted to experiment with a bit of photography, you don't need to have a fancy camera. You could just use your phone. But any kind of holographic material, tinsel, that sort of thing, shone on a piece of paper with a lamp, looks amazing. You could make some great stuff with that, couldn't you? Anyway, I digress. I'm going to hold this. I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I just really like it. I'm going to hold it on the edges here and just see. Quite like the wiggly lines that it's making. And it's just a guide, really. I think that's why this is such a mindful craft, because I'm not asking you to do anything specific, really. You are just having a go, just testing and experimenting. There's no start point, there's no end point. It can go on as long as you want, for as little as you want, however you like. I mean, I'm tempted to just carry on and on and on. You know me, I don't know when to stop. I like to use all the things all of the time. But the key here really is for you to just use it as kind of a calming influence on your day, to not worry about anything. I'm going to try and go over to this side now. I think I'm going to do this edge here just so that there's something going on, and then I will stop myself from doing the drawing on the shadows. Lovely. There's so many things you could try this with, like the possibilities are endless, aren't they? Okay, so I think that's pretty good. Oh, I do just want to fill this gap here. Let me just fill this gap. And this is another reason this is great, because you can it's just filling spaces. I found actually with a few of the different crafts and a couple of the sessions I've done on here is that if you don't feel confident with kind of being creative and doing anything that's sort of artistic, if you can break down an area in small chunks, it feels less scary. So when you're filling a gap, that's much less scary than doing a whole piece of paper. So this is quite nice because you're just filling areas, and then once you're done, you might find bigger areas that you want to fill, and all of those bits, you're only concentrating on those small bits each time, which means the rest of it doesn't seem so daunting. And that's what I like about these sort of crafts, is that you're breaking down all the scary bits to make all of them feel like they're manageable, right? So I just want to do this corner now. I'm just going to do this corner. And maybe you'll find the same thing too, is that once it's like the prospect of it is less daunting, that actually you can just carry on and on and on because there's so many gaps to fill. Lovely. Okay, let's move the sparkly pen out of the way. I'm quite happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to attempt to move the light away slightly so that we can see what we're doing a bit better. Well, I don't know if that's going to work. We shall see. It's still quite glary, isn't it? So what I might do, I might open my blind a little bit so we can see. Hey, we have that. Oh no, I think is that even more glary? No, we can definitely see the lines a bit better. I'm going to move that away so that we can see the lines on here. So now that we've filled our page, we've got all these beautiful shapes, all these beautiful patterns that really don't make any sense, and that's kind of the beauty of it, right? None of it makes sense. So you could kind of guess that maybe it's flowers, but we don't need to think of them as the things that we're tracing now. I don't want you to then come at this and think, right, so this is a flower, so I need to colour it in like a flower. It's not that at all. It's more just, again, it's breaking it down into the chunks and enjoying filling each area however you feel, whatever colour you feel. It doesn't have to be exact, it doesn't have to be precise, it could be whatever you want it to be. So essentially now what we're doing is glorified colouring in. There's a reason, I genuinely think there's a reason that, well, it was a few years ago now, I think it's still going, but a few years ago there was sort of a huge boom in adult colouring in books, wasn't there? Colouring in that's not just kind of children's drawings, right? It was kind of intricate stuff that you could sit and colour in. And it was huge. You can still buy all these colouring, mandalas and things like that. And that was quite a big deal for a while, wasn't it? And I genuinely think that that's because colouring in is a really sort of mindful thing to do. It's really calming, and it really takes you into the moment, makes you present in what you're doing at that moment. You don't need to think about anything else. So essentially that's what we're doing here, but without having to buy the fancy colouring in books. And also we're creating it ourselves, which is quite exciting. And we know that all of us are capable of doing it. So now we can get quite experimental with it. We can do this however we want. So if I just go back to the one that I had as the example here, you can see here, so this was all foliage outside, and it doesn't, I mean, I guess you could say it sort of looks like foliage, but it wouldn't have to be at all. And I've just really experimented with different materials. So I've used oil pastels, I've used marker pens, loads of different colours. And I haven't thought about it at all, I promise. I've just done what I wanted to in the moment. I've just done it step at a time, leaf by leaf or area by area, and just really kind of coloured in how I wanted to in that moment. I want you to imagine when you're doing this that you're a child, when you watch a child colouring in, they're often not really thinking about what colour they should do it. They're doing it what colour they want to do it. And that's the importance here. I think that's the most important thing. You're going to colour this in however you want and not how you think you should. So we're going to use a few different materials. As I say, I've got my chunky pencils. I think what I might do is start with some marker pens and then build it up. So we can build up layers. This is the other great thing about this sort of craft, is that there's no going wrong here. If you colour in a bit and don't like it, you can go over it. It's fine. So we'll start with just some kind of filling some spaces, I think, is what we'll do. So you might want to, for example, outline some of the areas that you've done. And this feels really nice. Again, this is why I think colouring in is such a lovely, mindful thing to do, because you're just, it feels nice just to follow a line with a colour and really take your time on it. So I'm almost sort of like highlighting these areas with this colour. And then what I might do is then go back in with some detail or some different colours. So that feels quite nice. I might then go in with another colour. Let's go in with this lovely blue. And you can see here there's like loads of different layers. Actually, maybe I'll move my camera slightly in a bit so we can see more of the detail. There we go. So these lines here where they've overlapped. Do you know what this is like? This is like, I don't know if you did this when you were a kid, where you got a piece of paper and you got a pencil and you just scribbled it all over it and then coloured in all the gaps. It's basically that, but more beautiful. That's sort of what we're doing here. And these overlapping bits here, you can sort of choose which one you're going to draw over. And then, so you're just following lines really. And then you've got all these lovely lines that sort of interweave and interconnect. And then you can choose what you're going to do with them. Beautiful. And also you don't have to carry on. You can stop. You could just highlight some of the areas and then leave it where it is, or you could go to town and fill the whole area in, which is probably what I will do. I think highlighter pens are really good for this sort of thing. So like fluorescent highlighter pens are really good because you can still see some of the lines, but also you get these lovely bright contrasting colours. I've actually got some fluorescent oil pastels which I'm going to use, which I'll show you shortly. Oh, I feel like I'm going to do maybe this line here. Lovely. Okay, and as we're building it up, you can kind of see it's starting to bring it to life slightly, isn't it? It's sort of starting to look like art. Would you believe it? And now I'm sort of going over lines now. And that's fine. Beautiful. Now you could do this with one colour. There's nothing to stop you. This could be a monochrome piece if you wanted it to be. You could, if you like that kind of look, you could use like one thick black pen and you could go over everything and colour some bits in, and that would look really nice as well. But you know, I love all the colours, and so I will be using all of them all of the time. Beautiful. And you could add detail in as well. So I probably won't do too much detail, but there's nothing to stop you if you like kind of very intricate work. If you like lots of line work, you could go in and add details, add extra things, different patterns, that sort of thing. What colours haven't we used? We haven't used yellow yet. And you don't have to do it this way round either. So what you could do is you could choose an area that you want to start on. So for example, you could take like this intersection of your piece and you could do the outline and then colour it in with different things and then move on to the next bit. I'm just doing my outlines all in one go because that's how I like to work, but that doesn't mean to say that's how you have to do it. You could do each sort of space at a time. Lovely. This is really starting to build up now. Trying to think what colours haven't I used? Purple. I haven't done purple yet. Great. Beautiful. And I suppose by using all the different colours sort of then makes it obviously not what it is, you know, it sort of takes it away from being, oh, I've obviously drawn around some flowers, and then it gives you the freedom to sort of see them as different things so that you can sort of fill them in however you want then. So I'm just, let's move this up slightly. I'm just going to draw on this bit. I'm going to leave this little fern and I'm going to do that with a different material, I think. We use this colour yet? But I'm going to try and fill out these lines with this colour as much as I can, and then I can go in with some different materials. Lovely. Okay, I think I'm probably about there with the lines. I don't want to do all of them because I've got lots of other materials I can be using. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move the marker pens out of the way, and next I'm going to go in with my pencil crayons. So I just spoke earlier about the oil pastels, which I'm definitely going to use. Because oil pastels are oil based, it means that once you've done your oil pastel, it's quite hard to go over them with anything. So pens and pencils and stuff, they don't stick to the oil pastel. So I'll probably do the oil pastels last. That'll be the last thing I do, because I don't want to ruin my pens. So I will do oil pastels, but we're going to start with these lovely chunky pencils. And this is where you can start to be really experimental with stuff, because I'm just going to start filling in gaps. I'm almost sort of highlighting some of the shapes. And again, I'm not going to think about what they should look like. I'm just going to use the colours that I like the most. So I really like this blue and green together. So I'm going to definitely do a bit of that together. Let's do some purple over here. Now, if you are sort of, again, the whole point of this is to sort of take away the fear of doing anything like this. You know, it's supposed to be freeing. It's supposed to make you feel confident in having a go. But what I would say is this: if it still feels like something that's quite kind of, oh, I don't know if I can do it, I'm worried that I'll get it wrong, what you could say to yourself is this: if you do every step that we've done this morning, your aim could be that the whole paper has to be covered, so that at the end of it you can't see any white left. It's all colour. And if that's the only goal, that's all you have to do, that's the only thing that is required of you, then I think that's a really good goal. If it's something that you feel quite worried about doing art, this gives you the permission to do whatever you want, however you want. If the only goal of the day is to fill the paper, then I promise you it will still look wonderful at the end of it. Because don't forget, we've got all this background here. So all the bits that we haven't drawn on, all the sort of bits that aren't sort of traced, there's still areas that can be filled in. So we can still decide, we can still make that decision. And in fact, I'll choose a bit now to do. So like this gap here, for example, we can colour that in. There's nothing stopping us filling all of the spaces. And again, if you feel more comfortable with a sort of paint, you could do this with watercolours. This would be really lovely to do with watercolours. You don't have to use fancy watercolours to do this. You can use the really cheap stuff. Poster paints for kids, really, really cheap. Anything you like, anything you've got at home. So now I've sort of started filling spaces as well, just bringing everything to life. And I'm literally just picking up the coloured pencil that I like the look of the most at that moment. That's all I'm doing. They've got gold and silver in here. Let's put some gold and silver in. Beautiful. So I'm concentrating on this area here. This sort of side here, because you can't see it on the camera, I'm not going to worry about it too much. Because I want you to see a nice full area. Where's the silver? Oh, we'll do some silver. And then you might find, so for example, there's a few of these lines here that I might go back into. I might put, or actually, do I have? Just wondering if I have any pens at my disposal. So I've got some thinner pencils. So these are just like standard pencils that make obviously a much thinner line. So I quite like the idea of using different sort of thicknesses of things, and I quite like sort of scribbly look as well. That's quite fun. So maybe I'll go in and go over some of these lines here, but purposely being quite sort of slapdash with it because I like the look of it. And then also, not only that, but you can add to it. There's nothing to stop you adding to it. So for example, right here, what I'm going to do, let's get a different colour actually. Do I have any other colours? Yeah, let's just use this brown here. So I might enhance some of the areas by drawing extra lines around them. Nothing stopping you doing that. You could go over and over and over this until it's just completely covered. There's nothing stopping you. And experimenting with how each of the pencils and pens feel. You might have a preference. You might prefer pens over pencils, and that's okay. If you use paints, you could try smudging them. You could try blending paints, whatever you like. And you're just filling areas however you feel. And this is looking quite good. I'm quite happy with this. Now I want to use my oil pastels, but I want to make sure I've done everything I want with these marker pens. So I might go back in. With some marker pens. Might do some more lines. Sort of going along, almost making shadows of the shadows, if you will. And it's just, you know, I'm now going around the shapes that already exist, but in a different colour, and that's a nice effect. Oh, I'm going to go around this whole area here. It feels nice to continue. This is what you'll find. You'll find you'll be going along and you're like, I don't want to stop. So you can just carry on going around. Lovely. And in fact, you could build that up with more than one colour. So you could go in with your next one and you're filling up more space. And I think that's why this is better than your fancy colouring in books, because you're not dictated by the lines that they've drawn. You're only dictated by the lines you've drawn, so you can choose to go over them or change them or add to them. Fantastic. Beautiful. I'm going to do some more yellow, I think. You can go over areas that you've already gone over. Nothing to stop you going over the top of stuff. This is why it's quite nice to use a few different materials. So if you're using like pencils and pens, because they will have different effects and some of them will go over each other, some of them won't. So you can experiment with that. So these pens go over the pencil quite nicely. They seem to blend a little bit, but they still work together. Fab. I quite like this yellow now. I'm going to carry on with the yellow. I'm going to fill this gap here. Nice. And can you see it's starting to build up now? It's starting to become something of its own. Absolutely not what we started with, you know. It's obvious. I don't know if you could say at this point that it does look like flowers that we've traced over through a lamp, but that's the joy of it, right? That's sort of the point. Okay. I'm just wondering if there's any more gaps I want to fill before I go into my oil pastels. I might go in, might fill in some of these areas. What colour do I want? Oh, the most exciting bit. Let's try this blue. Maybe we'll go in with these leaves a bit more. Do some more lines here. Beautiful. And then fill in some of these leaves, I think. I would say as well with these Sharpie markers, they are quite fancy. They're not super cheap. However, if you do, you know, if it's the sort of thing you use quite a lot because they're sort of paint markers, they're quite nice because when you colour in, they don't leave like the, you know, like the lines of the pen. So I always remember as a child when I was colouring in, I had this colouring in book of The Little Mermaid. The first thing I did on every single page was colour in her hair red. And it used to really annoy me, even as a small child, which is why I was destined to be an artist, I think. Even as a small child, it annoyed me that my red pen, when you coloured it in and then went on to the next bit, you could see the lines where it joined. And now I have access to really good markers. I don't have to think about that anymore, which is quite nice. So if you too was annoyed by painting Ariel's hair when you're a child, then the Sharpie creative markers are for you. There are other markers out there. There's like other pens that are really good at not sort of showing its marks. So they're called pro markers. You can buy cheap ones from Hobbycraft. I know that the brand Winsor & Newton do a really good set. So any kind of, if you type in pro marker into Google, you'll find loads of different types. They're often double-ended. Just wondering if I have any that I can show. I do. I'm going to show you. I'm going to get some down. Okay. Have many pens at my disposal. So pro markers like this. So this is a Winsor & Newton one, but other brands do their own version, and you'll have like a marker end and then a thin end, and they're really good for colouring in. I mean, obviously not this one because it's running out, but they're really good at colouring in and not leaving. So if I show you on here, they don't blend in, like they blend into each other really well, so you don't see the lines. Like so. So they're a really good option if you are a pen connoisseur like I am. Lovely. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is add some oil pastels to this. And now the oil pastels feel quite nice because they're quite good for blending. They leave quite nice marks. And then, as I said, I've got these fluorescent ones, which are really fun. These were from, I think they were from Amazon, and I think they're about £5. So they're a little bit more than a sort of really cheap bog standard oil pastel, but it's because they're fluorescent and they're lovely. But they're not like super fancy. You don't have to buy super fancy oil pastels. You can buy the cheapest type you can get, and you'll still get the same effect. So these ones have got, oh, look at those lovely neon colours, my favourite. And again, I'm just going to go in with the colours that feel right at the moment. So what I'll tend to do is I'll sort of go round some areas in a certain colour, and then I'll go back again to those areas with a colour that's maybe similar and sort of blend them a little bit. So I've gone in here again, I'm just going to pull in slightly so that you can see what I'm talking about. So I've gone in here with the orange, and then I might go in with like this pink, for example, and then sort of blend it together with the orange bits because they'll sort of mix quite nicely. And then I'll do some extra areas here. Oh, that pink's nice, very nice. And again, if your only objective is to fill areas, fill spaces, then that's great. So I might try and fill this. I'm going to try and fill this area before I go, just so we've got a nice snapshot of how it can look when you really sort of just enjoy what you're doing and enjoy the process of just trying to fill an area. I don't know if you can tell how neon, yeah, it does look quite neon, but I mean, it's sparkling in my eyes. It's so neon. I love it. And oil pastels are quite good because they're quite thick. They're quite crayon-like. So again, you sort of feel a little bit like you are sort of drawing like a child. It's that kind of childlike sort of effect, which I find is great when I'm doing art because it makes me worry less. It makes me feel less concerned about what it's going to look like. I'm more just enjoying it for what it is. What haven't I done? I haven't done this lovely purpley colour. Just filling areas. And you get this lovely, I mean, it's just, look how abstract it is and interesting. There's so much going on. You've got all these beautiful colours. Absolutely no skill whatsoever. You can just enjoy every second of it. And if you want to go one step further with the kind of like idea of being super mindful and not worrying about the consequences, is if you're doing it with somebody, then what you could do is you could swap places. So one of you could do you could both do the drawing of the shadows, and then you could swap your paper over and then colour each other's in. I always find that sort of thing's quite good. Like sharing your art really takes away the kind of fear of it looking good because it's then collaborative and it doesn't matter what happens. Oh, lovely, lovely, lovely. I mean, I could just keep doing this for hours. So much fun. I'm going to just go in with I feel like I just want a bit of pencil in here just to fill this area. Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to stop there, otherwise I will never stop. But this is how you do it. I mean, so exciting, so interesting, really, really fun, very calming. I feel like I could just have a nice sit down now and close my eyes and have a rest. So as I said before, you can do this on black paper if you have access to black paper. So this is one that I did on black paper, and I'm just going to show you very quickly that oil pastels work quite nicely on black paper. So if you have oil pastels and black paper, it's a really good fun. So I'm just going to very quickly recap everything that we've done today. You want yourself a nice solid light source. If you're using a lamp, you want a nice spotlighty lamp. Anything that casts an interesting shadow will work. Draw around it, but be super free with it. You don't have to be intricate. If you do want to be intricate, maybe put the thing in something that's not your hand so that it doesn't move. Maybe put it in a vase on the table. And then once you've filled your paper with line work, you can just go to town colouring it in with lots of different materials. Absolutely no worries whatsoever. And if at the end of it you've done it and you think, wow, what an absolute mess, then let me tell you, if you chop this into lots of little squares, it will make beautiful little tags. So you could easily just chop them, rip them into areas, make them into gift tags for Christmas, that sort of thing. Stunning. Really easy mark making, super relaxing, and very, very easy. And that is it. I mean, it's not it. I want to carry on doing it. I'm not going to. I'm going to go and have my lunch. But thank you all so much for watching. I hope you are feeling restful and you've had a really good Mindspace week. And I will be back very soon with more crafts. There'll be loads more colours, obviously. My name's Rosie. My business is Rosie and Ramona. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you all so much. Speak to you soon. Bye.